Hello and welcome to the Green Machine podcast. This is Nick standing in as host for David today on the day after transfer deadline day, where we're going to bring you our discussion of the Irishman who made moves over the last month, and in particular Matt Doherty, who last night secured a move to Atletico Madrid from Tottenham Hotspur. Martin, great to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, it's a really interesting transfer window from the Irish perspective. I know we've been covering it on our boys in green and speculating about who will be moving on and to pastures new, but it's a good one. I think we've had a few movements from under 21 players who are seeking more regular football now, which is going to be interesting to follow. And of course, like the big moves really are Michael Obafemi going from Swansea to Burnley, and then this one was a bit of a surprise in a sense that lots of speculation that Tottenham are going to be recruiting in a right back. Yeah. But it came to fruition, and then it has actually meant that he's completely left the club, which that is probably more surprising than we thought it might be a loan deal, but actually is terminating his contract. And I know that would be perceived as a negative, but it's actually brilliant for him, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant move for him as well.
Oh, it's excellent. And just anyone who isn't sure about it, I mean, it was a loan deal initially that they were discussing, but then Spurs basically have too many players loaned out, isn't it? Loaned out to different European clubs. So they basically have a quota and they had to cut the ties there altogether. So as you said, Martin, it's great because, I mean, a lot of people will be saying, well, how will he get on at Atletico? And if it doesn't go well, he's kind of in limbo then, isn't he? Because he's not quite with Spurs and he's not quite with Atletico, where at least we know that he's going to be there for a little bit more time than was kind of first anticipated. Just to kind of give you an idea, 29 players kind of Irish eligible or Irish international based did make moves, and that wasn't even League of Ireland. I mean, the huge amount of League of Ireland moves between the different clubs. We just wish we had the time to cover every single one, but we don't. But there was something like 50 something Irish players involved in moves in the winter transfer window. So it's just a fascinating one. So we're going to go through a few of them. As I said, we can't go through all 50 whatever, but just a few that kind of stood out. I suppose starting off, Martin, before we get into the discussion of Matt Doherty, a lot of under 21 players going out on loan and some very, very important ones. I mean, the ones that kind of stand out at the moment, I mean, we've mentioned Conor Coventry, and of course, Tom Cannon going to Preston from Everton, and of course, Coventry going from West Ham to Rotherham. Another one, Gavin Kilkenny to Charlton from Bournemouth. I mean, he's a guy who needs to get a bit of game time, doesn't he? But talk us through those moves. I mean, it's important that these guys are getting first team football, especially because Jim Crawford really values that, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think that is I think this is it is really important. And the under 21s, their new campaign will be soon upon us. We'll have the draw and we'll have the news and where we're playing. I know they've announced that they've got a friendly coming up in March down in Turner's Cross, so we're looking forward to that. But Tom Cannon in particularly, he's joined Preston. I think that's a really interesting move. The Irish contingent down there will hopefully bring him along. Hopefully agent Robbie Brady will do the job there, senior pro, and keep him grounded and get him in the door there and get him playing regularly. So that's an exciting one, definitely. I noticed as well that Liam Delap, who's also eligible technically.
Yeah, he is. He is eligible. We can confirm that.
He's gone from Man City to Preston on loan as well. So big Irish contingent or Irish eligible there. So that's a really good one. I think that I'll be focusing on a bit and keeping an eye on. I think the one to Rotherham is an interesting one as well. I mean, I think Conor Coventry going to where Chiedozie Ogbene is. Again, It's nice to see players in our squad linked up. It raises the profile as well. I think it's all the better for us. And I think he's an interesting one because he was very highly rated under 21s, good pro. Hopefully now he has to really kick on and get regular football now at that level. So, I think there's no shame in it. Like we've just said there, probably 50 moves or more and we haven't even mentioned the League of Ireland ones, but it's no shame in moving down or taking a step back in your career, or you're still an incredibly talented player, and it sometimes just takes time now for people to develop. And these Irish lads, it is in the DNA, and that's quoting Stephen Kenny, and that we want to see them getting regular game time and proving themselves, and that's what a lot of them have done in the past. So who are now even players for our senior team. Like Ogbene and things like that, they've all played, maybe taken step, and you don't really know the team they're even playing for. Yeah. And then it takes some time to develop. So I'm hoping they're going to be very, very positive moves as well.
I think with loan deals, Martin, and people forget this, like Harry Kane had about 5 or 6 loan deals, didn't he, at Spurs? And that's something to keep in mind. Like Conor Coventry, like he's playing the Championship already with Peterborough. And then he went down to MK Dons. Now, he was very, very highly rated at MK Dons, and they've completely capitulated, this season. And part of the reason for that is because he's not in their midfield. So, I mean, look, it's disappointing he didn't get much game time. He played a little bit in the Conference League, didn't he? And he played a couple of League Cup matches, made his Premier League debut. But he needs to be playing. Like, he's a very, very important player. We don't have many holding midfielders coming up to the senior ranks, do we? Like, apart from Josh Cullen. So you need him playing. Gavin Kilkenny's another one. I mean, very, very disappointing that he didn't get much game time at Stoke. A lot of that was kind of injury based. Charlton's a good move. Charlton is a good move, and it is one where he probably will be guaranteed a little bit more game time. James Furlong as well, Martin, definitely worth mentioning. He's a young left back with Brighton, and has been around the first team as well this season. He's gone up to Motherwell, and people bash the SPL, Martin, don't they? But I was only thinking about this the other day. Like, James Maddison went out on loan, didn't he? He went out on loan to Aberdeen, I think, when he was with Norwich. So it's another very good place to learn your football other than League One, isn't it? And as we said, it is about development. It doesn't necessarily mean that these players are finding their level at League One or the SPL. It's where they're going to get their football education and develop.
That's exactly it. And they're playing a man's game there. I know that sounds very cliche, but it's very, very physical. You have to really adapt and swim or sink, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to come up against, like very experienced pros there in that who are really grafting for a living. They're never going to be players on multi-millions of pounds wages. They'll be comfortable, but they literally are playing for bonuses and mortgages and things. And you have to earn your place in that side. I always think I think the loan system now is really, really important in football. And, even going back to, you can take it all the way back to like David Beckham learning applying his trade with Preston years ago with David Moyes, and Kilban was there, I think, at the same time. So it's nothing, again, people think, not everyone can go through, rise up the ranks, first team, for example, like Evan Ferguson, and go in there early and just straight away hit the ground running. This is the loan system is fantastic for players who perhaps are on the periphery. They need to get out and play regularly rather than just playing like, under 23 league or reserves and stuff. They have to be playing competitive football, and they'll learn it at really competitive levels. And I think that's something that really has to be considered as well. But
even some of the Championship lads, like if Dara Costello there, he's gone from Burnley into Bradford on loan. David actually saw him play, didn't he, against Wimbledon a couple of weeks ago. Alameda Shadipu, I mean, he's been knocking around for a good few years of QPR. He's gone to Lincoln on loan, and Tony Springett, didn't he play in the Premier League last season for Norwich? He's gone to Derby on loan. So there's a lot of kind of loan deals lower down the leagues that it's basically lads who just can't get a look at. I mean, Dara Costello, rather. I mean, look, Burnley are chasing promotion. It's very, very hard for him to get a break. So it's a very, very clever move for him. Connor Masterson as well, gone from QPR to Gillingham. I mean, that's a very important move considering how little football he's getting. I think something as well that kind of popped up around the same day, Martin, as well, was Coventry's moves, wasn't it, for a couple of Irishmen? So Luke McNally, very, very highly rated at Oxford United. He went to Burnley. Do you remember the clip of him with Vincent Kompany, saying, "How are you, big man? How are you, big man?" All this. Yeah. And then Sean Maguire, I mean, another guy who's gone completely off the grid. He needed to freshen things up, didn't he, Martin? But a very clever move for those two lads, because Coventry are a decent side. They play nice football. And I mean, it's guaranteed game time for the two lads.
That's it, exactly. And at that level, that's really important as well. I mean, a lot of these clubs, they are moving money around the books as well to balance books.
Yeah.
With no transfer fee, but just taking on the wage commitment and things. That often happens. So you have it at two levels. You have it at a player perhaps at the end of his career, which with respect, Sean Maguire is coming up to that now. He's probably not going to really be in consideration for the Ireland squad anymore. But he's had a very good career in some sense. And, he's probably on decent wages. He's never going to probably go up to another level, but he can find a team that will take him on and they'll know what he's about and a good pro coming in.
He needs to freshen up, though, doesn't he? Because I mean, he's at Preston, Jesus, about 6-7 years at this stage. And
exactly.
He started really well for him. I mean, he was excellent for Cork City. Really, really good player. Very talented player. I still believe he's one of our best natural finishers and dribblers, but his all-round game just isn't good enough for Ireland. Like, I can't see him getting back in an Ireland squad. But when you're playing for a team like Preston, who are never really near promotion, aren't they not? They haven't said that they're not far off this season. They're not far off, but I still don't think they'll go up. And they're not, really threatening relegation or anything like that. When things are kind of stable like that and things don't really move, it does stir in developments. They're spurring developments, rather. So, I mean, Coventry, they play nice football. As I said, they're a team that might struggle themselves, but just to freshen up again to that environment is important. And McNally as well, like he's a very, very talented guy. I mean, we were kind of tipping him for a senior call-up, but it's good that he's gone to the Championship, isn't it? And that he hasn't gone back down to League One. So just to keep that in mind. And a couple of other interesting ones, Martin. So there have been Premier League moves, haven't there? There have been Premier League moves. So a couple of lads possibly forgotten in terms of the senior setup, but Darren Randolph, Shane Duffy, both securing moves from one Premier League team to another. So Darren Randolph is going to sit in the city, on a bench in the city, to sitting on a bench at the seaside. And then Shane Duffy's kind of swapped it, hasn't he? He's gone from the seaside. He's gone from Brighton. He's made that move to Fulham permanent. Not that he's playing much, Martin, but still, it just shows what good esteem these lads are kind of held in. Their early 30s, not really getting a look in internationally, and they're still managing to get Premier League moves. So it kind of says a lot about their character more than anything, Martin, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the key for this. Senior pros are they're really valued at clubs, and especially Premier League teams. And, he's not rocking the boat. He's not knocking on the door demanding to be playing, Shane Duffy, at this stage of his career. No. I'm sure he has aspirations to get back in the Ireland squad, and it wouldn't surprise me if he is, because we know what we're getting with him. And, it hasn't been too difficult for him. When he has come back, he hadn't played for an awful lot, and Kenny put faith in him. He came back, put in some really good performances. I think long-term for us, that won't really work as much. No. He did create incredible loyalty to him doing that. But, it's a good move for him going to Fulham. It's lovely to actually hear like what we expect as well from Brighton, the kind of testimonials about him, saying even the owner, Tony Bloom's come out.
They love him. They're devastated.
Pro he is.
They're devastated.
What a brilliant pro he is for us. And, he's been through difficult times there. I know he's got fond memories of it. He lost his dad. He was supported very well by the club then. I know that was around the time he went to Celtic as well. Yeah. So, again, that's an example of a player who is just decent all-round guy, as we know he is. Does a great job for us. He hasn't upset anyone and demanding things in his career. I mean, he's had a lot of moves, actually, Shane Duffy, and he did do very, very well there for a period. And it just hasn't worked out for him at the end. I know injuries and things have had their impact, and perhaps, some of these challenges he's had off the field. But yeah, it's lovely to hear them so highly praised, and would be a great example to young lads who coming into the Ireland squad are seeing how to conduct themselves. And we've had, we've speculated in the past about how some of our young lads come into the squad who doesn't really work out for them, but they're the people they should be looking up to and listening to, really, because it just shows you if you knuckle down and work hard, you'll have a good career and you'll play for Ireland.
Absolutely. And if Shane Duffy wasn't knocking down the door to kind of play, I think another guy is Darren Randolph, isn't he? He's going to be third choice at Bournemouth. That's been more or less confirmed, because you've Nato, who's kind of overtaken Mark Travers, hasn't he? So it'll be interesting to have two Irishmen sitting on the same bench, won't it?
Yeah, it will. I mean, Randolph's an absolute legend for me. I think he's a brilliant player, lovely guy off the pitch as well, really values the support of the fans. He came in, didn't he, really, and got that number one shirt after 2016.
Yeah.
He's had some fantastic games for us. Really, really fantastic nights with him as well. You think of the Shane Long goal against Germany, that was him actually assisting that, if you want to look back at that, and he actually came on that night. He
He did for Shay Given. Yeah.
So it's, a really good lad. He's, for a goalkeeper now, that will probably be how his career will peter out. He'll go and sit on the bench somewhere as a senior pro. But, the goalkeeper role is so important in a squad. They train on their own with the other goalkeepers, and it's so important to kind of keep the number one going. That's part of your job as much as anything. And, not rocking the boat, not knocking on the door, demanding to be playing. I'm sure he'll get some game time, but it's a nice position to be in, isn't it? Without the pressure of actually being number one, that you're sitting on a decent wage and you've just got to be a pro, basically.
Do you think he'll go down that kind of Scott Carson route, or the Andy Lonergan route, where he could end up at a big club kind of being the third or fourth choice keeper?
Yeah, because that's what often happens with these players. They get a reputation as third choice goalkeeper because they know they'll train properly. They won't give me hassle. Look at Tom Heaton, gone back to Man United many years on after doing really well with Burnley. And it's a really undervalued position, as I said. And I think, Randolph, you can extend your career by not being an arsehole, basically, and just being a really good senior pro. And, we've often thought about, should he have been, I know he was overlooked, and there was kind of contentious time, wasn't it, when he wasn't called up by Stephen Kenny for the Ireland squad, and he was calling in the kind of new guard, as it were. And it's always sad for goalkeepers, especially a bit of a legend like Darren Randolph, where you don't really get to thank him and say goodbye to him, because he has just obviously petered out his career with the Irish lot. But a good lad overall, I think, and I wish him all the best with it, because I think he's sound.
Yeah, no, he's a great lad. And again, a huge amount of ability as well, which is key to keep in mind. A couple of moves, I suppose, from the League of Ireland. Barry Cotter, we mentioned on the show a couple of weeks ago, moving from Shamrock Rovers to Barnsley. An excellent, excellent player. Just didn't really get a look in at Ipswich, sadly, when Mick McCarthy left all those years ago. And Aidan Keena, who had such a great goal scoring season for Sligo last year, he has signed for Cheltenham Town. Again, a lot of people, the better players in the League of Ireland, they never seem to get the good moves. But one that kind of struck me of a couple of lads coming into the league. So you had Jake Mulroney. So Jake Mulroney done a bit of a stint in the MLS. Really, really good player. Really, really good player. Kind of was on the books of QPR, was on the books of Nottingham Forest. He's gone back to St. Patrick's Athletic, and he's kind of almost like a little marquee signing for St. Pat's. He'll do really, really well with the league. And Adam O'Reilly, who was with Pats last season, he's moved to Derry City. So he was released by Preston. And again, a lot of Preston fans kind of questioning why he wasn't given a chance, which is kind of interesting to see. And another fascinating move as well, Ed McJanet. So probably not a hugely known name. He has been involved with the Ireland under-19s. He was on the books of Luton Town, and he's after signing for Serie A side Lecce. So just one to keep an eye on. And again, another growing contingent, another member of the growing contingent, rather, of Irish players playing in Serie A and Serie B. Now, Martin, I suppose some of the moves that kind of caught the eye, and I suppose maybe the top three moves of the window. I mean, time will tell how they'll get on, but two players in particular, very, very similar kind of situations, I suppose. Aaron Connolly, who we did discuss a couple of weeks ago, doing quite well with Hull already. Michael Obafemi as well, of course, securing that loan move to Burnley from Swansea. It looks like that'll probably be a permanent deal if he does quite well, and if Burnley get promoted in the summer. But as we said, the main crux of the discussion today has to be that deadline day move for Matt Doherty. What do you think of that, Martin? We didn't see that coming about 48 hours ago, did we?
No, we didn't. I mean, the speculation was that the right back would be coming in for Tottenham. So you were worried about it in the sense that Doherty then is going to even slip further down the pecking order there. The fact it's not a loan move, we understand that, because there's the quota is basically 8 loan. You can only have 8 loans, and he would have been the 9th, so that wasn't going to be permitted. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity for him to go over to Athletic Madrid, experience that lifestyle, play under, a fantastic manager in Simeone.
Yeah,
they do play a system, and I think we have to remember he done fantastically well with Wolves under a system. When he had playing in that right wing back role, that's where he came to prominence, and I think he'll be trusted by Simeone if he can get into the team, because he'll work hard and he will do what he's asked to do, and I think that's where he'll actually thrive. I think there's very limited pressure on him now as well. He's out of the goldfish bowl in a sense that people aren't looking at him and Spurs and seeing his shortcomings. I know a lot of fans at Spurs, they weren't massively impressed by him, but then he wasn't always played where his strengths were. Yeah, even watching the announcement of this on Sky Sports, obviously transfer deadline day is massive, isn't it? I know we don't have Jim White with his yellow tie anymore, but
Harry Redknapp in the car.
Yeah, iconic moments over the years. But we did have the presenter outside Tottenham's training ground, up, which is very close to me actually, in northwest London, and they're outside it and they're talking about this move that's happened, and a player going out, and then they announce it as Matt Doherty, which really bugs me. And
that's how you pronounce it though, Martin, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I actually seen someone was talking about Doherty, Gary Doherty, and they his nickname was the Doc. So
the Doc, yeah.
Yeah, so or Ginger Pele, of course.
Mick McCarthy called Matt Doherty the Doc, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so as well. So it's just interesting, isn't it? But yeah, it's a bit of a bugbear, and yeah, we did put a little comment on Twitter about it, saying it's Doherty. But fair play, yeah, it's a good move, and I'm excited to see how that one goes out for him overall. And I think Tottenham fans will look back and think he was a decent signing for them. 2019, 2020 when it happened. He didn't play an awful lot for them. He's had a few injury challenges as well. And, it's not so long ago we were speculating about him full-time replacing Seamus Coleman in the Ireland team. And he's never really nailed down that spot either, despite, an aging Seamus Coleman in there. And he's played very well in the left for us as well, if you think back on it. So he will be important to us, and we can't just dismiss him. And what I don't like in this transfer to is actually when Trippier went over there, and he knuckled down and he settled into that squad really well, and his reputation actually increased again on the back of that move.
He was around the same age, wasn't he? Like there's a lot of similarities with it, because he was around the same age as Doherty. He was around 30, 31, and I suppose he's a right back as well. He went from Spurs, so there's a lot of parallels between the two. I've a few comments here, Martin, just from that. So we kind of asked people for their thoughts on this move for Matt Doherty. So Mark Finnegan, on paper, a very good move. Always love when an Irish player tries their hand outside of the UK. Really hope it works out for him. Adam Walsh didn't need any more convincing to go. Sorry, try that again. So Adam Walsh didn't need any more convincing to go and watch Atleti. So again, we'll probably have a few Irish fans with Athletic Madrid jerseys around Dublin in the next little while. Andy Herbert. So odd he cancelled his Spurs contract to sign on a 6-month loan deal. Hopefully for his sake, he got a good payoff from Spurs. So we've kind of clarified that, he was actually released from the contract altogether. Irish UEFA coefficient. So Spurs can't have more than 8 foreign loans, so they had to terminate his contract. So thank you for clearing that up. UEFA coefficient. Michael Lavelle, great move from him. Hopefully more Irish players follow suit. Leon Brady, it's a permanent move, not a loan. So that was just in response to Andy. Connor Flaherty, good move from Matthew. Martin Malone, like it when he was on loan, concerned his contract was cancelled with Spurs. Again, that's been kind of cleared up, hasn't it? Liam Hewitt, the fact he's not gone on loan now, if he does well, they can just sign him in June without having a transfer fee. And the likelihood is that they'll be in the Champions League again. Emmett, only if he wants to sign. Good move for him, I think. And Keal Dulla, NY. So just saw the Tottenham release him due to some crazy loan rule. So a great move and presumably a big payday. Now or in the future, crazy stuff from Spurs, though. Giving away a player who was arguably their current starter at right back. So again, an interesting one. Just on a Martin, do you think more Irish players will follow suit and maybe think outside the box? Because, look, we looked at Aaron Connolly going to Venezia. It didn't quite work out. If you look at Irish players in the past who've gone to Spain, there hasn't been that many, has there? There was Michael Robinson, there was John Aldridge, of course, Ian Hart. There was a couple of people comparing the move. I don't think it's quite comparable to Ian Hart going to Levante, but do you think we'll see it? Will more senior Irish players take the plunge and go abroad? England, get away from England, rather. Jesus, they're already abroad.
I think so. I think it's not a bad thing. I think back even to Robbie Keane when he went very, very young to Inter Milan and he came back and he learned all the dark arts, as it were, playing with Ronaldo back then as well. So it can really improve you as a player. Whereas I think going to America is a little bit differently. You kind of perhaps could get lost. I know we've chatted about that recently when players have moved over there and, is it too far unless you're a high profile name and you've established yourself in the Ireland squad? This is a bit different, though. I think he will play regularly, hopefully, over there. And he will still be one of the most important players in the Ireland squad going forward. So I think for that is encouraging, and it's not many have made the move. But yeah, I would embrace it, actually, having players who go over to Italy and Spain and trying a different culture and, coming back and spreading the word, basically. And it does enhance their reputation. A lot of our young lads are doing it now. I know that's one of the good things out of Brexit as well, that some of our players are staying longer in the League of Ireland, but they are also getting moves to foreign lands. And one of the things I did notice is interesting. Some of the moves of a couple of young players, I think, have moved from League of Ireland to kind of academies and youth level. At Crystal Palace, I think, is one of the lads moved over there.
Yeah, Uma, with Shamrock Rovers, yeah.
And the release clause is really, really pittance, basically. So that's something, hopefully, the FAI with the new rebranding of the League of Ireland are another thing they have to kind of sort out over there, because it's not going to be sustainable, obviously, the League of Ireland, if you're able to kind of take away some of the incredible talent for very, very low release clauses. And I know it's anyone who kind of does stand out in the League of Ireland does get a move, and it's for the money that's in English football, it's pittance, basically, to take a chance on someone, bring them over, and I think even like the likes of Dawson Devoy, he's done very, very well with his move, but if it doesn't work out, I know we had the big influx, didn't we, from Preston many years ago. It doesn't work out, they all go back to the League of Ireland, and they will have had improvement from the experience. So it's worth a gamble for the League of Ireland, the English teams, to do it.
There needs to be more savviness, I think, in the League of Ireland in terms of the business perspective. Because you look at Doherty and Bowes, I think, got very, very lucky. I don't think it was any savviness on their part, but it was just the way that the contract kind of worked out. Sligo didn't quite have the same approach with Seamus Coleman. You look at Cork City with Kevin Dull, Shane Long, David Myler. It wasn't quite there. Those sell-on clauses weren't there. But I know it might be a discussion for another day. I don't know if you saw Mikhailo Murdik, who's after going to Chelsea. I still don't quite know how to pronounce his name, but the Ukrainian player costs over 100 million. He nearly went to Dundalk a couple of years ago. Yeah. So I imagine he if you have like clearly Dundalk were doing something well with their recruitment process. They do recruit outside of Ireland. And if you kind of say, well, you might get these guys in from wherever, Ukraine or wherever, kind of Eastern Europe and so on. You can buy these guys in, and if they have any bit of talent and if you have any kind of savviness with their contract, you can sell them for a huge amount. So that is part of it. It's a discussion for another day. But again, I think a similar approach can be taken to Irish lads going over to the UK and abroad.
Especially with the League of Ireland clubs.
Further abroad.
Exactly. When they're playing in the League of Ireland, though, and they're playing in Europe, they are in the shop window, basically, now. And, when other teams and countries are going to wake up to the fact that this team are competing in Europe, what's making their team so good? How much, the structure of the contracts and stuff is year to year and stuff. So it's worth them just hanging on or putting the feelers out to them to kind of bring them in and see if they can kind of handle it at, an English professional club. And the money they're paying is nothing really. I know there's add-on clauses and things like that, like there was with Matt Doherty, but I think it's really worth exploring in future, definitely. And that is a shop window, the League of Ireland, when they're playing in Europe, certainly.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap this one up, folks. So this was our transfer show. So let us know what you think of the transfers that happened over the last month. What do you think of Matt Doherty's move to Atletico Madrid? What do you think of Aaron Connolly's move to Hull? Michael Obafemi to Burnley and so on. As we said, over 50 players, Irish players making transfers between the League of Ireland and between different English and European clubs. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Suppose Dave would like me to say that. And wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, which is all in our bio wherever you're listening to this. So all the best and take care.